Yeah, it was really good.
But, really well.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. I see many familiar faces, particularly that of my daughter over there in the corner, who's going to be very well behaved today. She promised, but anyway, he's the one hiding underneath the desk.
Put him on the spot.
There you go. So, today's session here, first, thank you for making the time to come to this one. I know there are many competing sessions that are very interesting for all the people attending. The one today, the title is, I don't even know how to pronounce that acronym, but basically when you spell it out, is what you don't see is what you don't get. And the subject of the talk is about complying with Section 508 to ensure, or at least to strive, that the web presence of our institutions take into account the needs of people with disabilities, and particularly students who are blind. And I'm joined today by two wonderful people who have made a significant progress with their effort and dedication to make the Law Center's website at Georgetown University much easier to read by people with disabilities. The first person is Marianne, our Disability Services Coordinator, a terrific person who works not only on this end, but everything that has to do with the students with disabilities on campus. And also a person who has volunteered an incredible amount of time to this particular effort, busy as he is being a rising 3L student doing one of these summer internships that he's doing now, by which he's late for whining and dining everywhere in lush restaurants and performances and things like that. There's another person from the audience here, in the audience, who is from Georgetown Law, and that is our Director of Legal Research and Writing, Diana Donahoe, is sitting in the back. And the reason why I'm mentioning Diana is because I'm going to make a shameless pitch for those of you who are here to also attend teachinglaw.com. Is the next section at 1 o'clock in room 107. We've been working with Diana for years in this particular project, and it's a wonderful electronic casebook. I'm sure you'll learn a few things about that casebook, which may already be in use in your institutions, or which may be considered to be put in use by some of your faculty members. So let me start by saying that what we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about the web governance model at Georgetown Law, which made this focus on 508 compliance easier to some extent than in other organizations where I've consulted or work. Marianne is going to give you a background of Section 508, what it means and the implications and everything else. And then Eugene is going to do something fascinating. If you've never attended before, he's going to show you how a blind student sees a web page. And that is absolutely an eye-opener, literally speaking. It's something that really helps you understand many things about how we build web pages and how we construe information. And then we're going to open the floor for next steps, for suggestions, for things like that. And we're also going to offer any help we can get to any of you who may be thinking about going down this path, so that you can do more of these at your own home institutions. So the web to us is a serious business. And take these statistics with a grain of salt, and sometimes with a bottle of scotch, because nobody really knows that those visitors are real visitors, or repeat visitors, or hackers, or spiders, or anything like that. But by last count, we looked at the statistics using Web Trends, and we have 1.6 million visitors per year coming to the Law Center, including over 4,000 community members who go there almost every day to check different information. And because many people don't enable cookies in their computers, they look like new visitors every time they come. So we don't know, but it's a sizable number of people. And we realized most of them, of those 1.6 million visitors, over 5 million visits, most of them are coming from the United States. We also see a trend, people coming from the United Kingdom, China, and Japan, and then a host of all other countries. In fact, I have a nice map that shows that they come from almost everywhere, and there's a big red dot of people coming from Moscow, who must be the Russian lawyers interested in this, or hackers trying to hack our systems, one or the other. What is it that they do once they get to our website? Well, you know, the vast majority of them start by going to the main page, the home page of the institution, and from there they navigate and everything else. But we realized that the second most popular thing they do on our website is to watch webcasts and podcasts, which is surprising because certainly we have a lot of them and we make them available to the world, but we didn't know they were so popular. We still don't have really good statistics about how many people are watching the webcast and the podcast. Like many of you, we have an iTunes website and you have a YouTube channel and we have a syndicated content, so it's very hard to understand who's watching it, but certainly a lot of people. Which is something that I have to talk about during the next steps, which is when we do these things, is there any way we can do closed captioning of particularly the web events that may be useful for hearing impaired people. Are any of you doing closed caption for any of your webcasts or anything like that? No. It's interesting. I understand the technology is expensive, but it may be something about it. We've done transcripts on occasion. When we had a very important event like commencement or things like that, we have hired a person to go through and do a transcript by hand, which was probably shortly after the event. But it's not a closed caption video or anything like that. So, all right. To give a feeling to my fellow presenters about the people in the audience, how many of you would you say that have a tricky job that has a strong component of web work? I'm going to say myself. All right. So I would say about 1/3 of the room. How many of you are more like faculty or academic people? Not many. Right? How many of you work on something else? All right. And some of you are just here because it was free breakfast, I assume, because you didn't raise your hand either. All right, that's good. Well, thanks for coming anyway. We appreciate the audience. So. All right. So let me tell you a little bit about the web government model. And I've been at Georgetown for 7 years, and this is the same model we have all along. I helped implement the model, but parts of that were already there. The main thing is that we have a working web group. This is not a committee with voting rights and people who write memos and do nothing. This is a working web group where people do actual work. Other than myself, as the co-chair of the group, everybody else puts their effort into this. And the committee, the group is co-chaired by two people, always by the head of publications, who at one point in time was also an academic dean, and now we have a full-time director of communications, Elisa, a pretty wonderful person, and by me. And the value of that is to match the technology, the innovation, and everything else with the actual content. It's a model that has worked very well, and I work very well with the head of publications over the years. Has campus-wide participation. There are many people there, from career services, from admissions, sometimes from student affairs, sometimes we get student representatives. It's a good diverse group from the library, certainly, where they contribute a wealth of content to the institutional web presence and everything else. And it's a very cordial web group where we bring food to some of the meetings. That helps with attendance. It's a strong recommendation that I make if you're going to have something like that. The main documents we use to guide our work over the year, other than small initiatives, is to have an annual web plan. Basically, we go around and we ask, what is it that is going to change in the web presence of the institution over the next 12 years, divided by trimesters. And the value of that is that everybody gets a heads up of what everybody else is working on. If the library is thinking about redesign a big section of the website, we'll know about it, we can tell people, we can offer advice. If we're going to bring online some new services, everybody will know about it, they will be informed. And all of this has to do with our 5-year technology plan. The web presence is very important, it's part of the technology presence of the institution, and we just make sure that it has the 5-year guidelines of the kind of things that we want to do. Of course, sometimes we're surprised about certain technologies, and we have to modify our 5-year technology plan. If it's an example, I'm sure that all of you are, like I am, wrestling with the issue of social networking. What do we do? How do we incorporate more of that to our websites? Should we get it all into that? Do we do Facebook, LinkedIn, Blogger, Delicious, Dig, you name it, all those wonderful things. And the value of this group, for example, is that we can get together, we share information, we share advice, we share policies and everything else. So it's a wonderful group. Our model, however, to put content on the website is different, because these people are working and they're coordinating the work of their departments and everything else, some of them being large departments. The library, for example, at Georgetown Law has 60 people working in it. I think 30 professional librarians and 30 non-professional librarians, something like that is the distribution. So what we have is a web contributors model. And at one point in time when I arrived at Georgetown, there were one or two people funneling all the content for the website, and that didn't work. And I've seen this not working at many other institutions because it's very hard to have such a bottleneck where all the information has to go through one person with back and forth and edits and things like that. So instead we promoted a distributed web offering model, and for that we used technologies that many of you may be using. How many of you are using Adobe Contribute and Dreamweaver for content? It works well. It has some disadvantages, and I'll talk about them. But the value of that is that it's a very distributed model by which you can give those software licenses to people, mostly faculty and staff members, but also on occasion research assistants or people who are somehow affiliated with the institution. Give them access to a development server and the real server if necessary, and then have them post all the information live and online. In order to support this, we have one-on-one and group training. Because once again, some people are very good and they know how to use these tools in other jobs and they require very little hand-holding. Other people are new to this. Their jobs have been transformed to include a web publishing component and they need to get up to speed with that. And we offer that kind of coaching and support. But we have more than 100 web contributors. Seems like an amazing number, but keep in mind Georgetown is one of the largest law schools in the United States. We have, I think, something like over 500 faculty and staff members, and many of them contribute to the website. I sponsor personally with my own training budget from the ICT department a breakfast for all the annual web contributors. And during that annual breakfast, we introduce new versions. We talk about some of the new topics that are relevant to the web presence of the institution. For example, last year we talked about search engine optimization to make sure that public search engines like Google could pick up the content from the pages of the Law Center easier and better than everything else. Or this year, Marianne gave a wonderful talk to the web contributors about 508 compliance. Or, for example, Georgetown University lost a hard disk drive in the winter break with social security numbers for many faculty, staff, and students. I'm sure nothing like this has ever happened at your institution. But it happened at Georgetown. And one of the things that we've done is to emphasize the issue of security and privacy and things like that to the Law Center contributors. Even though this did not happen at the Law Center, it happened at the main campus, it's something that could easily happen. And the main thing that we were addressing with that talk is to say careful what information you publish on the web, because what you think may not be spidered by search engines or things like that, in fact sometimes is. So careful about keeping all the confidential information away from the website. Date of birth, social security numbers, grades, any FERPA information, and those credit card numbers and wonderful things like that. And we also have an email list, which is not very active, but judiciously useful, that we use for all the web contributors to communicate with each other, to share information and everything else. There are also sections on the website where we publish information about that. For example, our communications team has come up with new guidelines about identity for the institution, and those are made available. For example, many of you may have noticed that we're not the Georgetown University Law School, we're the Georgetown University Law Center. And we've been telling people this for 20 years, and yet most people will call you Georgetown Law. So now, as you look at the website, we're Georgetown Law officially, and that is the name that is preferred in short publications and websites. And we made all these 100 people aware of that, so that we would have a common message throughout the web presence of the institution. Any questions so far? Yes?
So you don't have a central web editor at all who's sort of just trolling to make sure that those things are kept up to date, that everybody is in compliance?
No, I would say the web group serves that function.
Okay.
Different people, there are people from the publications team in the web group, from admissions, from career services, from my own office and everything else. Whenever we notice that anything is out of whack, we bring it to the attention, and then we work with those people in a distributed fashion. Okay. What is the software development model? Because as you may know, these websites are no longer just one HTML page. They're complicated software applications that have news postings and coursework sites and intranet sites and student Facebooks and many other sophisticated applications. Web publishing systems for the webcast and the podcast and things like that. Well, first, there's one person in my team is a director of systems development. And this person coordinates all the work of the people who do any software development at the institution. Both team members, which are mostly from my team, Information Systems and Technology. But some of the librarians also can do a small software in ColdFusion, and my team member works with them in order to coordinate the work to ensure that the code is compliant with all the things we do, properly written and things like that. And also it's the same person who reviews together with me all the contracts, because there are many tasks that we can do in-house. There's too many things happening, institutes, centers, and special projects. And we review these contracts to make sure that they are okay. For example, many of you may have heard about a project called Our Courts, which is recently announced by Sandra Day O'Connor, and it's been done with Meryl Chertoff at Georgetown Law, and also Arizona State University, if I'm not mistaken. That's the alma mater for Sandra Day O'Connor. And for that, we're working with a cadre of outside companies, marketing companies, web development, media companies, to make sure that they develop this web presence for our course to teach young students in the United States more about the legal system and the court system, including the development of a game. So we review all the software and everything else to make sure that everything is okay, that is going to work well, and everything else. One interesting thing we do also is, once again, we have these code review sessions for anybody who does code, either in my team or the library or somewhere else. We get together and we review each other's code. And once again, with food, because that's the only way you can bring people together, at least to get a beating on their egos when somebody who may be a more skilled developer than you tells you, well, this is nice and it works, but it's not properly structured. I suggest you do this or you do that or everything else. It's a wonderful model. It was done by the Director of Systems Development. His name was Juan Escalada. He announced recently that he's leaving, so he's sailing back to Spain, where he's from, literally on a 42-foot boat, I think next week. So we wish him well. What technologies we use? I'm sure that this doesn't surprise you. Raise your hand if you're using 2 or more of these technologies. Large group of people in the room. One, Active Directory to find out who you are, so you can access the internet resources and everything else, and you don't have your own separate authentication system. Google search engine, because it's a good one and it's free to education institutions, as you may know, depending on how you use it. We use ColdFusion on Windows servers, and we have only recently started to use Microsoft SharePoint for collaboration. We don't have any of the public websites here, but we have created things like a research commons where people can exchange information. And for example, one of the early adopters is once again Professor Diana Donahoe, who's working on a SharePoint site with some of the research assistants to be able to work on documents and everything else. We think it's a wonderful technology, and we can think, and we see that the .NET and the SharePoint will be making more inroads into our web presence, perhaps displacing ColdFusion slowly. But we have been writing ColdFusion code for 10 years, so the amount of effort, money invested there is considerable. And any switch to other platform is a very long-term project. And finally, we use PayPal for electronic commerce, because at the Law Center we had to pioneer electronic commerce before the university was able to do it. Took them a few more years to get all the Treasury Act together, and we continue to run those electronic commerce applications because once written they work very well and they give you all the revenue. So what are the advantages of this approach, the governance models and how we do everything? I think it's a very flexible model. It allows us to match people with the skills. For example, if you're a person who doesn't know much, we give you a micromedia Adobe contribute, and you modify pictures and text, and it works beautiful and keep everything up to date. If you're more sophisticated, you can do micromedia Dreamweaver. If you're even more sophisticated, we can give you access to the databases, and we can give you access to the ColdFusion program. But we can supervise all 3 stages of involvement, and we have lots of people contributing to the web presence of the institution. It's agile also. It means that everything is up to date. Comparing the old model with the new model, things were stagnant for months or years before anybody noticed or people could get around to doing things, because now it's everybody's responsibility to do this, different department heads and the people working for them. You can see that most of the pages are up to date. Not all of them, but most of them. I think it's innovative in the sense that it lends itself for people to try new technologies and new things. Will support most of the new efforts to some extent or another. For example, hosted blogs on Typepad and things like that. Those things tie very nicely, and we have a culture of trying new things and see whether they work or not, and whether we can make those available to the rest of the institution. Incidentally, a few months ago, I was given a secondary appointment working for the university CIO, precisely under the same premises, to take some of the innovative technologies that we used at the Law Center and ensure that those can be spread throughout the rest of the university. It's a very long job title having to do with IT and emerging technologies and everything else. But it's a good thing of having this culture of innovation and having people share that innovation. I think it's collaborative. In the past, we found that people who were doing either web content for the library or even within the IST department, they felt alone. They work in a very small cubicle by themselves, unable to exchange ideas with people. Now there's a community of people contributing content and software and everything else, and it's a very enriching professional development tool for many of the people. Of course, we also collaborate. There is also a university guide committee, something like Georgetown University, something, that talks about the web presence of the entire institution. And some of the people in the web group also attend the main campus meeting. The main campus meetings may happen once a semester or something like that. Is that a question, Cindy?
Yeah, how about is it, who decides the overall look and feel? Is that a collaborative process? I mean, is there somebody that has kind of the final say? If everybody says, I hate this, but one person says, but I love it. How do you, how does that work for you?
I think Washington is a very political city. And I think that is both, both Elisa Free and I, the director of publications, and myself try to build some consensus. If it doesn't happen in the end, where there's one dean of the law school for a major either conflict or disagreement, for example, real estate on the home page is limited. And you may imagine how every institute and center thinks they're the most prominent thing at the law center. Well, they are in their mind, but the dean may disagree with that. And I think that when the dean faces a conflict like that, he would also try to do a consensus building with the 4 associate deans who manage the different areas of the institution, teaching, research, clinics, and something else. There you go. Good question. It's low cost. It is much cheaper to do this approach with the contribute and everything else than at least the content management systems to which I've been exposed. They were very expensive and complicated. It's not only the cost of the software, but also the cost of deploying these. There may be open source solutions that work better than these, but at least this is quite reasonable because, as you know, we get a very significant rate from all the software companies, including Adobe, through university-wide agreements. I think it has very low complexity. It's easy to understand how the system works, and hence it's also reliable, but also easy to fix if anything doesn't work. Some of the cascading style sheets are out of whack or anything like that. It's very easy to replicate why and fix the problem. And, as I mentioned before, it contributes to a very up-to-date web presence. But it also has some disadvantages. The main one is software license management is a pain in the neck, particularly when you get, for example, research assistants involved who are students who may work for a short period of time, then they graduate. It's not that they're still in the software, it's that they forget to remove the software from the laptop. And yet you have to account for those kind of things. On occasion, you mentioned that you made a very good question. Sometimes they run away creativity. People who think that a rainbow coloring scheme is the way to go for a career services page. And those people are slowly educated, and they're told that, however creative that is, there's a whole presence. People are using things in certain colors and things like that. It's a challenge when there's high personal turnover ratios in some departments. It's no secret, for example, that most alumni and development offices in the United States, higher education institutions, experience a significant amount of turnover. Those are people in high demand who can bring millions of dollars to your institution. Who wouldn't like to hire a person like that? And this creates a problem when there is so much change that you have to train people, particularly also for the continuity of their web presence. If you have department heads who are changing, one year they try to do one thing, the next year they try to do something else, it's confusing to the people who visit those particular sections of the website. And once again, we try to have all this structure and model and governance so that we can take care of it. And that's all I have to say. Any questions before I ask Marianne to tell us everything about WYDSIWYG? Ben?
How often do you have your committee meet?
The work group meets weekly, except for the summer months where we take a break. I must admit that the last meeting we went sailing on the Potomac, which, for work. And the second to last, we wished a farewell to Juan, who's the director of systems development, who's sailing back to Spain. But most of the time we meet weekly and we work.
How many are on that committee?
It varies from year to year. I would say it's going to be anywhere from 10 to 15 people would be an average number. So.
And is your law library presence, I see that their pages have a different template. Are they the only ones that have a different template? Is there a reason for that?
There is a reason. The library at Georgetown, the library set up a web presence even earlier than the law school. They were more innovative than that. And over the years, they have their own presence. Although they sit in the committee, they participate and everything else. Not only that, but 5 or 6 years ago, they decided we're having problems managing the technology. Could you please, can we bring the web server to your data center? And can we use your databases, SQL and everything? Sure. And we keep a very open approach about that. Not all libraries feel that their mission is 100% similar to that of the law school, that there's a difference in what they do and what people they serve. And Georgetown University is perfectly fine having that. But for example, when we redid our faculty bio system to showcase faculty information and publications and everything else, well, it turns out that the faculty scholarship information is published by the library and then syndicated to the individual faculty pages that happen to be on our website. So there's close integration. Okay. Friends?
Any faculty members on that? Or how many faculty members do you have on the committee?
No. You know how faculty members have better things to do. So.
Totally understand.
And that's all I have to say. So thank you very much. And Marianne, please.
So as Pablo said, one of the initiatives that we've done in the contributors meeting is a 508 initiative. And this started by we were talking about something else in the web, and I think we brought up that the little question of PDFs and accessibility. And then we kind of ran with it and started this as a whole initiative. So I'm going to start by explaining what Section 508 is. It's of the Rehabilitation Act. And so that we can get a foundational understanding of where this is rooted, and then we're going to talk more about how we did it and what you at your institutions could do to have this come about at your school. And the first thing I want to say is this has really been a very painless process. It sounds very scary, compliance with the law and technology. That it's a scary combination, but it's actually been very painless, and it's been a great way for us to be able to integrate students and student affairs staff and then technology staff all together to make our website better. So please ask questions as we go along. So when we say Section 508, it's an amendment to the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, which was passed in 1998. So there's your background. The purpose of it is to make electronic and technical information accessible to persons with disabilities. And we'll see that the purpose has expanded to a broader population, and it's helped a broader population. But the main part is making sure that everything is accessible. So what's covered by Section 508? You see that there's 4 things here, from software and operating systems, telecommunications, video and multimedia products, and then finally websites and internet-based materials. And the last one is really where we focused our efforts on our Section 508 web initiatives. So the whole purpose of 508 is to make sure that that people with disabilities have equal access to web content. So if you think about your individual websites or the websites that you visit all the time, it's how you access them, how someone accesses them in a non-traditional way. We focused in our Law Center initiative on 4 main things: links, tagging images, fonts and headers, and PDFs. There are certainly many more things that could be covered, but we wanted to make sure we got the low-hanging fruit first, and this is where we started. Okay. So why be compliant? It's not, it's the right thing to do, it's the law, and also there's an article on your desks about the National Federation of the Blind versus Target lawsuit in 2006, where Target actually was sued because their website was not accessible. And they've made major changes and really had to outline a 508 plan. And that has had ripple effects to the private and the public sector for people to know that actually this is something that's being watched and being really targeted here. Also, so accessible sites allow screen reading software, the one that we'll demonstrate today is JAWS, to read internet-based material aloud. And this is a question that I get often as a disability services coordinator. How do your students, how do they access what we put on the web? Well, this is the answer. There's a lot of technology that's changed. It's helped people to become more independent, be able to access the internet at any time during the day. So it's important that we make these little tweaks so that it truly is accessible. And so who does it serve? First, it'll serve members of your university community with a variety of disabilities. It's not just visitors to your website that are blind. It's other physical disabilities, people that have mobility impairments that could be helpful for. Also people who are dyslexic and reading content in a usual manner visually can be difficult, especially if it's complex material. So having something to be able to read out loud, we have several students who use this software who have a variety of learning disabilities. And then also outside visitors with disabilities to the website, so that even if when you're thinking about your student, faculty, and staff population, if you're thinking, I don't think we have any specific people who would use this, you may not right now on your campus, but with the numbers of people that see websites and visitors, specifically those who only come the one time that Pablo mentioned, those are people who need to be able to navigate around very quickly. This is the face of your institution. So it's also the visitors that aren't directly tied to your institution. And then also search engines. This is interesting and also a good bite for why this is important, but search engines such as Google reward sites for 508 compliance. So by doing these things, you will move up higher on that ever-coveted Google search. All right, and then before we're going to start our screen reading software demonstration by Gene, but first I'd like to just tell you a little bit about how we actually did this at Georgetown Law. So first we made the presentation to the web contributors meeting, got people interested in it. We did the software demonstration. We did a video of it that you can watch online. And then we asked individual departments to go back. We gave them almost like, it was a one-page piece of paper, almost like a recipe list of if you want to change alt tags, here's how you do it in our software. A to-do list so that people could go directly back with this piece of paper back to their desk and change the little things on their websites that are very doable. We then said, if you know that you have issues with things, talk to the technology team, talk to the web group, and see if you can get those things fixed. Things like forms. We didn't want to go into really a lot of depth in the big meaning about the more difficult things. We wanted to leave people with 3 or 4 things that they could do right away. But if they knew that they could spot things that might be tricky, they could get the technological help that they needed. Our next layer, which has really proved to be probably the most helpful, is different departments will send me their websites. Like the career services web contributor will send me their website and say, could you test this? And so what I'll do is I'll send this web link out to 2 of our students who actually use JAWS all the time. And they'll read through the site and then send me back really detailed feedback about what works, what doesn't work. Sometimes it'll be as quick as, this is a perfect site, we're fine. Or it'll say, I couldn't read this form. Or, when we see oftentimes forms, the required information will be in red. Well, a screen reader doesn't read that. So you need to also put asterisks there. So it could be very, very simple stuff. And if there's something tricky, again, the technological team can help them with that. There's money in my budget to pay those students the hourly student rate. So look through the web content. And Gina and I on the train over this morning were talking about what if you don't have students who use this software every day that you have access to. And we were kind of brainstorming about ways to do this. Because I really do think you can download JAWS for free and use it for 45 minutes, as many times as you want, 45 minutes, so you might have to re-download. But really the value in it, I think, is having someone who actually uses this every day to be able to judge how effective a site is on it. So you may want to talk to not just your law center disabilities office, your main campus disabilities office to see if they have students who want to do this. I think it sends a nice message to the students that we actually really do care about your impact and your interface with the institution. And then if you don't get any response from the student population, I would just try your local community. See if there are other schools in the area, see if there are high school students, actual users, I think is really important. And just to let you know, we haven't used a lot of budget on this. It's been very inexpensive in terms of paying the students. They don't take hours on end to test these websites. It's really quick. So, and it's also given, it's made it easier on each individual department to comply with 508 because we'll take the technological illness of it.
Can you tell us what you did at the annual technology faculty retreat?
How we presented it to the faculty. That's right. Also recently I presented at the annual faculty technological retreat and talked to faculty about things that they could do and just things to keep in mind with 508 compliance. And it was great. There were lots of questions. Some specific things are that PDFs are hard to read, so that whenever possible, putting things up in Word documents, or at least having underneath saying, if you need an accessible format of this document, please contact, and then the contact information, so that a person doesn't feel like, well, this is just something that I'll never be able to get to. And then also a big thing that we've been working on this year is through the library's website, they have old exams that are in PDFs with professor handwritten comments on it. Great study tool, but a study tool that many of the students registered with my office had no access to before this year. This year we had things scanned, we had student assistants that were just in the dean's office retype them and add the comments in manually. It actually wasn't that big of a time-consuming process because we just did it for the classes that the students specifically needed. And I hope that it was helpful come exam time.
Do you have a main campus accessibility services, and if so, were they at all helpful?
Yeah, we do. There is a disability office on main campus, and they're wonderful. But the wonderful thing about the law school is we can get things done a lot faster because you know the administration well, and so we just kind of did this.
And what about the Commission for the Blind?
We haven't worked with any outside players on this. We would encourage you to.
Yeah.
Of course.
We have an accessible site, and they were extremely helpful with us for providing the software.
That's
both
great.
JAWS and WYDSIWYG.
That's great.
And equipment.
Yeah.
Giving us money.
This is really a hot button issue right now, so that there are more and more resources, there are more and more institutions that are trying to do this. And people are really seeing the value of it quickly. There's another article just from the Washington Post yesterday that I passed out about changing the standards for things like video online to make sure it's accessible.
What have you done about that? Streaming.
Well, what we've done is, how we do it is as an as-needed basis right now. Again, we wanted to start with the low-hanging fruits and get the things that we could make it 80% better pretty cheaply and pretty quickly. And we're going through the other things more slowly and more methodically. But if a student needs access to it, or if a visitor needs access, we certainly supply it then. We'd like to get to the point where you didn't need to ask with the universal design, but we wanted to make sure that we had some quick successes. We've only been doing it for about a year. Do you want to do your demonstration?
Sure. Morning, everybody. How many folks have seen JAWS, window eyes, some kind of screen reader in action once or twice, somewhere, before, ever? 10. About 10. Because I don't want to sort of bore anyone with it, or cover material you might have already seen. But we did this kind of a demonstration both before the web managers group, I don't know the exact title, web contributors group, trying to put skin on the sort of skeleton, because when you talk about language like compliance and accessibility, it can be daunting. A lot of people want to do the right thing, but what is the right thing? How does a person who uses this stuff on a daily basis relate to a website, relate to your institutional presence? And I think that was a lot of the catalyst for getting people interested in taking action and coming back and working with us. But feel free to interrupt me at any time. I'm just going to try to give you a flavor for how it is that a person like me, either as a student, as a faculty member or a staff member, or as a prospective student, and I should add that to me this mattered a great deal as a prospective student. There are 2 out of, I think, the 7 or 8 law schools in the Washington, D.C. area where I wanted to be that have accessibility statements on their webpage. And I knew right around the application cycle which 2 schools those were, and it sent an important message about who's inviting and who is really conscious of these issues and who's looking out for me as a member of the community and not just creating a web page that's sort of focused on just cited issues. So it's something I noticed. There's 2 kinds of web pages and web access users you're going to run into in your community, and who are persons with disabilities. The first is your casual user like that, who's coming to your web page for the first time and knows very little about how to move around it, and is not going to be clued in by the visual paradigm that you've set up on your page. So you have your masthead on top, you have maybe links along the left navigation side, you have this very standard templated layout. That information may or may not translate into a screen reader, and it's going to take a person with a disability some time to learn your interface. Once we do, we're going to be able to move around fairly quickly if your page is marked up in a way that allows a screen reader to move around. And like Marianne said, if you do that, you'll get all sorts of interesting fringe benefits. You'll get better search engine optimization because you'll have what's called semantic markup. And forgive me if I drop into technobabble. I have a technical background before law school. You'll also, these pages tend to be very mobile device friendly, which is an increasingly important area of service and an increasingly important community throughout these, throughout everywhere, but I think in the law world too. Especially, we're seeing more and more firms starting to put iPhones on people's desks. We're seeing that students coming in with iPhones and small browsers. You need a stripped-down site to do that. And those lighter sites tend to lend themselves just naturally to that sort of thing. So the way I interact with a page, let's see if we get the volume right here.
O-Tab, Microsoft PowerPoint -O-Tab, LSAC.O-Tab, District of Columbia Courts Microsoft Internet Explorer.
Let's keep that a little quieter. Is that about right?
O-Tab, Google Microsoft Internet
So I wanted to do something to sort of generally illustrate the concept with a page or a site that absolutely everyone is familiar with. And what I'm trying to demonstrate here is the difference between the general visual idiom and how a screen reader is going to interact with a page, and why it's important not just to do accessibility in a way that minimally meets some kind of compliance guideline, but really the goal is a design that lets me as a student, me as a community member, access information quickly and effectively. For those of you focused in library and research support, you know that it's all about quick information retrieval, and indeed that's what we as law students, and I'm sure faculty members and anyone else trying to do information retrieval, what we want, our time and the speed with which we find information is ultimately, in some ways, the competitive advantage and the thing we're trying to be taught in law school, that we should get faster and better.
Grabbing the top, Google search edit, enter, forms mode up.
You can search for
CALI space CONERENCE.
CALI conference. You'll see that it's just what I've done. What I did there quickly was hit a quick keyboard shortcut to jump to the first edit box on the web page. Hit enter to enter JAWS Forms mode, which just interacts with the screen with the browser in a little bit different way. So that when I hit enter, it'll hit that search button. And what JAWS will do once we open this up is begin reading the text of the page, which is all JAWS can really see, plus the HTML markup that's there that it can navigate. It'll just start reading it in series.
Forms mode off. Enter. CALI Conference dash Google search CALI.
And I could have spelled that right. Okay.
Search edit. Enter. Forms E. C-A-S-O-N-E. R-E-S-E. Forms mode off. Enter. 100%. 1 frame, 11 headings and 66 links. CALI.
Am I really? I can't. What is my F key? Okay, so it's probably did you meaning me. Okay.
Yeah.
What you can see is so if I'm just hitting my down arrow, which is the first thing to do, you're going to see what JAWS is reading. It's reading the top nav up at Google, and Google's a pretty clean site.
Land, web, link images, link maps, link news, link shopping, link Gmail, link more, land, link sign in, land, link Google, search, edit colleague, search, link advanced.
The point here is that your eye, if it sees that stuff, it barely sees it. Your eye is going straight from the top of the page. The page layout is designed to drag your attention straight to the search results. If I'm using this page, I don't want to read this every single time, and there's really no way as I'm moving around.
Land, link preferences, land, left land, MD/E frame.
I don't even know what that is.
Land, MD/E frame.
To figure out where what I'm interested in finding is on this page. As it happens, and so as a first-time user, I'm going to move around this page and try and figure out sort of what's the topology of it, how can I find what I need faster. I happen to, like everybody else, use Google a lot, and I know that every search result is marked with a heading level 2 tag. Google added that about 1.5 years ago, and it made moving around a lot easier. Before that, you had to search for the word results, which was just before results list. It wasn't really very much fun. It was slow. So, but JAWS provides a shortcut key, and all the screen readers have similar things, moving around elements on this web page to jump to actually a heading of any level. I could hit H for any heading. I know it's a heading level 2. I'm just going to hit the 2.
Sponsored links heading level 2.
Okay.
www.cali.org-the CALI Conference for Law School Computing registered heading level 2 link.
Right. And I can quickly jump around
www.california-studies-annual
to each of those links just by hitting that page. But I want to emphasize that that's because there's invisible semantic markup that's not visible to your eyes. The whole visual idiom of Google is designed to draw your eye naturally to it, but just because it's there and it's in front of you doesn't mean it's necessarily marked up in a way that makes it functional for a screen reader. Google only has about 10 navigational links up at the top, and this is why you'll see these skip navigation links that sometimes work on various pages, because when you have a really dense site like Amazon, or some of the big portal sites, you could literally have hundreds of these things, and you don't want to be wading through them. So that's what a day-to-day blind user is going to be doing, is looking for things that he or she can hook into, jump around a page, and ultimately quickly retrieve what you're looking for. Let's see, that's Google.
Alt-tab, PowerPoint, Alt-tab, Microsoft PowerPoint, Alt-tab, lsac.org, homepage, Alt-tab, District of Columbia Courts, -mic.
So this is a, just to kind of, it's kind of all of that flows, I can make specific points about markup and specific points about other ways in which people present information visually that ultimately doesn't come through in the screen reader, but it's all kind of variations on that theme. This was a case, this DC court site was one I was trying to use yesterday.
Link Chinese left pair, link French left pair, and link Korean left pair, link Spanish left pair, link Vietnamese left pair.
What's interesting about this, and this is something that I just found confusing initially, because this page doesn't put these links at the top in context. Again, their visual placement on the layout puts them in context. I assumed, after looking a little bit, that these switched the language of the website. But there's absolutely nothing on this page.
Links, link French left parent French.
As you just start seeing link French.
Link, land, table end.
Oh, it's a table.
Land, graphic welcome.
Okay, that's pretty good. That graphic has markup that tells me what it is. But you see, I'm just moving around, and the only context I'm going to get based on these links is the text that surrounds it itself. So if you have links that say for more information on X, click here. That may or may not be helpful. But what you don't want is to just drop that link in the middle of nowhere without perhaps saying, well, describing in enough detail that somebody without looking at it can tell what it is following this link will do. And this is good interaction design in general. So like I say, I'm kind of down at the 500 feet level here.
Link graphic, welcome to the D.C. The highest court of the district, semicolon, the superior court of the district of Columbia. Link is the policy dash making bot.
Yes.
No headings.
No headings. That's surprising. In fact, there's really, and this again, I'm just sort of driving on a point about semantic markup. I believe, and I've been told there are large fonts here. Welcome to the district court of superior, the District of Columbia, that sort of thing. And yet those aren't marked up as headings. So I'm using quick keys and JAWS to move around and quickly get to parts of the page that I would expect to be called a heading if it's a heading. But there's nothing in this markup that makes that at all possible for me. So, if I use this web page every day, I'm going to learn how to move around it a little bit. I'll notice search for,
link join.
Start at the top.
7.
With my
Num lock off. District of D.C. Home link graphic.
Maybe I'll look for, I'll end up doing a search to get quickly to where I want to go on this web page. I believe someone tells me there's colored text on this page. Is that true? Are they using color? That was what somebody in the office told me.
They do use a little bit of color text.
To sort of demark what's what. Again, if that information, if that denotes something important to the user that can't be gotten any other way, say, well, click on the red text. And you're going to see this a lot in forms, as Marianne already mentioned. I'm going to be out of luck accessing that. You want to move on?
Alt-tab, CALI, Connor, Stat, Alt-tab, PowerPoint, slot, Alt-tab, Microsoft PowerPoint, dash left bracket, Alt-tab, lsac.org.
Here, and only the here is the link. When he goes up to list all the links, it'll just say here, and nothing. It won't be very specific, but if you underline that whole thing and have the link, then when he goes
LSAC.
to links, that's...
Sure. Let me give you an idea of that. So this is the LSAC page. It's a little more dense and probably a little more. We weren't going to look at any law school pages or anything like that. I don't want to single, but this is a little more like a page you might have. It's fairly dense. It's designed for a wide variety of kinds of users, from applicants to career services people to. They all have to start here and get to where they're going. Another tool I'll use a lot is a little screen reader shortcut, and all the screen readers let you do this, that will give me a quick way to just browse through the links on this page.
JAWS dialog, links list dialog, links list view, LSAC. Shop, FAQS, thinking about law school, the Juris Doctor degree, getting started, preparing for law school, thinking about law school full menu.
And to me, and again, I'm sort of making, subtle or annoying points, but what's the difference between thinking about law school and thinking about law school full menu? This is the kind of thing that in visual context perhaps makes sense. It never made sense completely to me until you use it, and that's not how you want someone to walk into a page.
Choosing the law school links should be the LSAT full menu.
But at least it isn't a list of here's, which I like. It's this. I believe there are some.
Applying LGBT applicants. Search of.
But this is yet another way you're going to see a person, sort of a more experienced user, relating to your site. And so again, your link titles and the text you're using may be all I ever see, or at least my first blush at trying to move around this page.
H home H
think that's the only age, which is home.
Escape. New bra.
Yeah, and well, I'm just trying to give a general overview, but I'd absolutely love to take questions from this group and let all of us take questions.
Ben Chapman from Emory University. Have you all also done some automated testing as well? Because I can see a site like the DC Court site where it looks like they've got an image map up at the top, which is really going to be difficult, I would think, for you to evaluate. Are you doing automated testing using Bobby or SynPSS or anything like that as well?
No, not now. Just really using the people to do it. That was definitely tagging images was one of our core things because,
Right.
and the reason we want to tag an image is images can mean all different things. They could just be a picture of students eating lunch. Well, that's not super important for someone to be able to see. But it could be the curriculum map. It could be the calendar for when you need to apply to take the LSAT. Well, that's pretty important. And so you need to at least know, I can't access this. I need to be able to call someone to figure out this information. So.
In the back?
Hi, I'm Cindy Johnson from UNM School of Law, and we went through this as well. And my question is actually about the intranet, Marianne. Does your intranet, is it compliant as well? The thing that our school has done, it's pretty interesting. We were pretty much 100% compliant on our main site, and then the marketing people became in charge of the site department. Not putting down the marketing department, however, they decided that it wasn't important anymore. And so pieces of our site are falling away from being compliant. And one of them that they said, absolutely, it does not matter, is the intranet, which is where we consider the most important because we put everything that students need to know on the intranet. So I was just wondering, is your intranet compliant, do you know?
It's the same governance model that we have for the intranet and for the outside side.
So is it compliant, do you know? Are you working on getting compliant?
We've improved some of the sections of the intranet sections, but there are some applications that are legacy that are very hard to improve.
Yeah.
For example, we have our own homegrown Courseware system that we've used for 10 years. You used to see
Courseware is accessible. I mean, I've never brought up Courseware because Courseware, more or less, I don't even want to say more or less, Courseware works. And you know, the only challenge is that on that is working with faculty who occasionally post PDFs that don't read, but that's really not the software or the application. That's what the faculty posts. And then you just go to them, and usually you can get a word processing format, Microsoft Word or PowerPoint or something like that.
And I should have said earlier that not only do departments send their links to me, if any of the students who use the site see a problem with the site, they can send the link to me, and then I'll work with that department. So it's kind of a finding situation.
My institution is considering a much larger rollout of SharePoint. Is there any sense among the community whether SharePoint leads to accessible sites or does not, or is it just a blank canvas? I just wondered if anybody else had any experience with SharePoint rollouts and this issue of accessibility.
I would ask them. I think that also in terms of advocacy for the importance of this, that asking the question is really important so they know it's on the radar. We're rolling out the twin system through Westlaw to replace courseware, I think, and to do exam software, that kind of thing. When they presented last Wednesday, I went up and asked them, what are you guys doing about 508? And they had a whole 508 team that they were just starting, and the only thing not accessible right now is the live chat. So, and they said they've been crawling around trying to figure out how to do that. So I think it's becoming more and more on the radar, but asking the question, they probably have an answer to it, or they should if you're farming out.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know with SharePoint, we're just beginning to use this. We introduced it at the annual faculty dinner retreat a month ago, or 2 months ago, and we're still trying to find out the best distribution, adoption, and so if you find anything, please send us
Send it back
information.
around. Thank you.
Wayne Miller, Duke Law. Great presentation, very interesting. I have a real small question about PDFs. Are they all bad, or is it the formatting doesn't come through, so if you use multiple columns?
It depends. The short answer is no, they're not all bad.